Welcome to the Unlocking Senior Resources podcast by Leave the Key. I'm Larry Wagner, and I've spent 30 years working with seniors where I was a certified senior advisor and the last 15 years in the home buying industry as a certified senior transition specialist, where I specialize in dealing with seniors going through a transition in their lives. This podcast is for seniors, those with seniors they love, and people who work in the senior community. In each episode, we bring on a guest who works to improve the lives of seniors. This podcast is your key to unlocking senior resources. Welcome. Today we're here with Michael Ettinger from Ettinger Law. Welcome, Michael.
Oh, thanks for having me, Larry.
Happy to. I've seen your name and your posts here for a long time, and today I want to make sure I get the right topics. Today we're going to cover some specific topics, which are why estate plans fail. And
that's a good question.
It's a good question. And understanding trust, which is incredibly complicated for most people. And you got some heavy lifting to do today. So, but before you do the heavy lifting, take the easy, the light load, and that is, how'd you get to become an attorney and develop Ettinger Law?
Well, you know, it's a little embarrassing. How I became an attorney was I was at McGill University in Montreal. I'm born in Canada, and I thought I got into law school, I'd be able to get girls easier.
That's a nice, genuine appreciation
It was genuine.
for law.
I was only 19 years old, and it was considered high status, you know. And where we weren't in an environment where the women looked up to jocks. They looked up to scholars.
That's it.
Grew up in a Jewish neighborhood, so education was everything.
Right.
And professional schools were the holy grail. So I had an affinity for the English language. I was a good writer. And oddly enough, you know, I didn't know what I wanted to do after I got out of college. So I went to the vocational training center, and they said I was destined to be a teacher.
Okay.
So how did I become a lawyer?
Yeah.
Well, I became a lawyer for the reasons I mentioned and some others. But it turns out I've given over 5,000 seminars because I like to teach.
There you go.
They were right.
They were right. It's so funny you say that, because my degree's in teaching, and I never decided, not after student teaching, I said, I'm not going to be a teacher. Long story, not going to go into now, but I'm constantly teaching young people to be my competitors. I just did one day, I spent 2 hours or so in today. I'm constantly doing that, and I give seminars all the time. So it's in our blood.
Teacher,
a teacher's a teacher, right?
Yes, I love to communicate. I like to explain things in plain English.
Yeah. A plain English, and you're an attorney? You sure you really passed the bar?
Well, the truth is, I mentioned earlier, you know, my wife, who's my law partner, calls me the unlawyer.
The unlawyer, right.
Because I write and speak in English. Sometimes I say I came out of law school defective. Because they teach you to think like a lawyer. And a lot of lawyers act and think and talk like lawyers.
Right.
Well, I like to say I'm a person first and a lawyer second. I didn't drink the Kool-Aid.
You didn't drink the Kool-Aid.
I still talk like a normal person. I act like a normal person. And I think the law should serve the social and not the other way around. And this leads to, you know, why do so many estate plans fail? Because lawyers are not taught to do the social work.
Right.
They don't do the social work before they do the legal work. So they do a plan that works legally, but I've seen countless plans tear families apart, perfectly legal.
Yeah.
But they didn't do the social work. So what's the social work? Well, who's going to make a medical decision? You think that's simple, but, you know, when you pick somebody, you're excluding others.
Right.
And do they live near or do they live far? Do they have the intestinal fortitude to do it? I had a fellow who came in to see me. He said his mother's been on life support for 2 years.
Oh, God.
She can't eat. She can't open her eyes. She can't move. I was appalled. I said, well, did she sign a living will? He goes, yes. I said, well, what happens when you go and visit her? He says, well, when I put my hand in hers, she can squeeze my finger. Well, I told him, look, ask her to squeeze twice if she wants you to let her go.
Right.
I was appalled. I actually lost sleep over it until I realized about 24 hours later, what actually happened was she picked the wrong person.
Right.
She said, don't keep me lingering, but you have to have somebody who's willing to do it.
Right.
He was too weak to do it. He wasn't the right person. So socially, not good. But who you pick to handle your legal and financial affairs is important. Do you pick one person or more than one person? Do they have to act together or separately? How are the others going to feel about it? The objective, at least in my view, is for the family to get along after the parent is gone.
Right.
The plan has to work socially. It not only has to be fair, it has to appear to be fair.
That's an interesting comment. Yes. Reality and perception. They say perception is reality. In your case, appearance is reality. Yeah.
Well, I love that because I always say perception is everything. I had a client come in the other day. She was mad as a hornet. She had steam coming out of her ears because she had an abusive son-in-law who used her daughter to get his degree. And when he got his degree, he said, I want a divorce, and he moved out. And she was just mad as a hornet at this guy. I said, if it was my daughter and she had an abusive husband and he moved out, I'd be thrilled.
Right.
She said, you know what? I never thought of that. It's the same set of circumstances, different perspective.
Yep.
Different perspective. So then, it happened again. She comes in a few months later.
Angry again.
This son of a gun, he's not complying with the court orders. He's not producing the documents. She's mad as a hornet. I said, you know what? The worse he acts, the better it is for your daughter.
Right.
Because the judge is going to see who he is. Judge is going to get mad at him. They say, you should be cheering him on.
Right.
She said, you're right. Again, same set of circumstances, different perspective.
I tell people all the time, you can choose to look at the positives or the negatives. It's your choice. Some people always look at the negatives as it's in the way they function. I say, but just try to start looking at the positives and make it a habit. And I said, you'll look at the bright side, but it's the logical, practical bright side. And she's just focusing on the negatives, which really are to her advantage.
Are we twins?
Right. Are we twins? That's right.
Really, my mother used to always say when I was growing up, make lemonade out of lemons.
Yeah,
Obviously, a lot of our listeners have heard that.
Yeah.
But whenever something bad happens to me, and I teach this to clients, whenever something bad happens to me, I look in the mirror, I say, what did I do? I take full responsibility. This is how you learn and grow.
Yeah.
It didn't happen to me. Most of the time, I did something.
Right. It's so
and
true.
I look for it. But also, you look at the same thing, you say, how can I gain from this? How can I benefit from this? What's the lesson? So you can turn any negative into a positive. Now, terrible things happen to people.
Yeah.
But who wants terrible? Take the terrible and see what good can I make out of it. That's what an optimum does. It's just an optimist does.
Yeah.
It's just natural.
I agree. It's natural. Right. Another comment I'll make on this, which is sort of an adjunct, related but not exactly the same, and that is I never worry. And I remember reading a book in the 1980s, The Erroneous Zones from Wayne Dyer. And he said, if you do something and 98% of the time it doesn't work, you stop doing it. And 98% of things you worry about never happen. So why worry? And I told this to my wife, and in 1982 or 3, when I read the book, I stopped worrying. I wasn't a big worry to begin with. So my wife's attitude is she has to worry twice as much to make up for my lack of worrying. That's the negative person versus the positive person.
My God, you're killing me. We're psychic twins. First, I'm a big fan of Wayne Dyer.
Oh, there you go.
I never worry.
There you go.
My wife says she does all the worrying for me. That's why I don't have to worry.
That's right.
I mean, I have the same
We have
story.
the same wife, too. Go ahead.
Yeah. Nice for her to share. You know what Winston Churchill said about worrying? He said he was visiting his friend who was dying. And his friend said, Winston, I had a lot of troubles in my life. He says, most of which never happened.
That's perfect.
Yeah.
I never heard. That's a great line.
So let's talk about trust. I mentioned to you earlier before we came on the air, if you don't understand the plan, you don't have a plan. So when people come into my office, I'm aware that they're at a low level of confidence. So the first thing I say is, I know you're at a low level of confidence. I know your confidence is low. It makes people feel relaxed, comfortable. They're understood, they're heard. I know how they feel sitting in that chair. And I tell them, I believe it's my duty or obligation to build your confidence. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to build your confidence. And the way I do that is, I've written now 3 books on this subject, but they're in plain English. I have a 2025 edition. It's called Ettinger Law Firm's Guide to Protecting Your Future, which is what we do. We protect people's future.
That's an interesting way of putting it. Not protecting your assets, your legacy, protecting your future.
I
haven't heard they're put that way, and it's a very good way of putting it.
Well, I'll tell you, there's something behind that. I don't just do estate planning. I do health and well-being for older adults. I've written 30 chapters in my book just on health and well-being for older adults, because what I've learned as an estate planning lawyer over the years is most people's problems occur between one ear and the other. They're self-induced. I mean, you're aware of this. And a lot of it has to do with perspective. A lot of it has to do with worry, other issues. So I try to calm my clients down. But in terms of building their confidence, here's my book. These are the chapters that apply to you. I want you to read chapters 1 to 7, 48 to 50. I give them optional. I always give them the optional well-being, because you can't help but see how much of people's problems are self-induced that they could fix if they just had the tools. So I try to give them the tools. Some of the things I teach are acceptance. Accept what is. What's the next line after accept what is? It's very profound. All pain comes from resistance.
All pain comes from resistance.
From resisting what is.
Interesting. Never heard that phrase.
I mean, we've all, when we've gotten to our age, we've all had our ups and downs.
Yep.
Do you accept what happened, or do you resist it? If you resist it, it's on you. It doesn't care. It happened.
Right.
So it's your choice. Again, perspective.
The perspective,
right?
yeah.
I teach peace of mind, forgiveness, gratitude, generosity, all these things, because it makes people's, not just their lives better, but everybody around them's lives better.
Right.
So I give them a copy of the book, say, these are the chapters I want you to read. It's a free consultation. And I asked them to watch my 37-minute video.
Mm-hmm.
I had a 52-minute video, but I realized nobody's going to sit for 52 minutes in this day and age, so I cut it down to 37. Yeah. I had to fly down to Atlanta and do it 8 o'clock in the morning, do the video, then when the shoot was, but I made the trip just to cut it down to 37 minutes.
That's funny.
And when people come in for the second, I always have a second free consultation, because I want people to be able to build their confidence, feel comfortable without money being involved.
Right. Right.
So they feel relaxed, open, comfortable.
I don't hear the second free consultation when I hear other lawyers.
It's unknown.
It's unknown. Yeah,
well,
it makes a lot of sense.
Part of the problem, Larry, is lawyers don't understand the word free.
Mm-hmm.
Unknown to the profession.
Right. Yeah.
So I have that second meeting. I answer their questions. I draft the plan. In the first meeting, I told them how much it's going to cost.
Right.
Because I don't want people walking out of the office wondering, what am I in for here?
Right.
I tell them right away, this is what it's going to cost. And next time I'll answer your questions, I'll draft the plan, I'll give you a written 3-page proposal. And then if you decide to go forward, come in the third time, we'll execute it. Now, I believe, because I invented this, we're the only law firm in our field in the country that doesn't take a retainer. Mm-hmm. We don't take any money up front.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's unknown. So every lawyer is taught in estate planning, when the client wants to go forward, take a retainer for half the fee and the balance when they do it. Well, I question everything. I'm a contrarian type. So I analyzed that, and I realized that that's not the best thing for the client, because when the client hands the lawyer the check for half, what does the client have?
Nothing.
They have less than nothing.
They have less than nothing.
They have a loss of control.
Right.
Because now they paid for something. They have to hope the lawyer performs.
Right.
And helps they perform to their satisfaction.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought, look, that's not the best thing for the client. The best thing for the client is to pay at the end when it's all done, they're satisfied. Now, if that's the best thing for the client, I'm here to serve them. If that's what's best for them, it must be what's best for me.
Mm-hmm.
So I changed. I said, I'm going to put it all in writing. This is what I'm going to do on your say-so. But unless and until you write us a check, you owe nothing to the firm, regardless of the work we've done.
Right.
So now the client's relaxed. There's no pressure on them. They're in control. That was one of the best business decisions I ever made.
Right.
I can't get any other lawyers to understand it, but that's fine with me.
It's good for you, actually.
Yeah, it's good for us.
Yeah.
But, because the other lawyers are worried, what if you did all the work and the client doesn't come back?
Right.
Well, so what?
Right. Yep.
How does it happen? 2 out of 100 times.
I was going to ask you that. It's got to be very seldom.
It's the cost of doing business.
Right.
I don't want those people anyway.
Right. Yeah.
But I didn't risk my time. I risked the secretary's time because I
Right.
already did the work. They're
Right.
preparing the documents. It's not
Right.
such a big
Or
sacrifice.
the time with the client is all the information gathering time. That's really the
It's all
biggest.
been done.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So we're very client centric,
Mm-hmm.
you know. I look at people. So when somebody comes in, they'll say, well, I don't have a lot of assets or whatever.
Yeah.
I don't look at people what they have.
Right.
I look at people soul to soul, like a
Mhm.
person to a person,
Right.
you know. I see everybody the same. And I see success as being happy with where you are and what you have.
Right.
That is success.
Now, I feel that we're connected because I say the same thing. It's not a monetary thing.
It's
Right.
not.
Absolutely.
If you're happy with your life, you're screaming success.
Yep.
Because no matter how much you tell people, I mean, you're jealous of a billionaire. You know what? He's going to take the same to the grave as you are. He's taking the same thing with him.
Right. Right.
You know, people think, you know, I might be getting off topic. You know, people think they own things.
That's never
you know?
happened here before, by the way. Getting off topic.
You know, you don't own anything. You have the use of it for a time.
Yeah.
You know?
Right.
So everything I have,
Yeah.
I share.
Right.
I have a condo in Florida. I invite my friends, my relatives, my staff. Go use it. When it's empty, I get nothing. When you're there, I'm happy. I'm
Right.
selfish.
Yeah.
You think I'm doing something for you. You're doing something for me.
Right. Yep.
You're making me happy by
Yep.
going and using it.
Another dog I have all the time. I help these young people try to get involved in this real estate business. My wife says, why do you spend hours every week helping these people? There's nothing in it for you. I said, it makes me happy. And but because you do it during work. I have enough money. I want to be happy. And this is what makes me happy. And it's a currency you can't identify. You can't measure.
Well,
And
who's happy? The givers.
yeah,
Have you ever met a taker who was happy?
that's right.
I never
Yeah,
did.
yeah.
You know why? Taker never has enough.
Yeah.
Never.
That's
You
the
can't
truth.
fill it up. It's a
Yeah.
psychological need.
Yeah,
Can't fill it up.
Yeah.
So anyway, obviously we're on the same page. Well,
Yep.
get back to the subject with this trust.
Yeah.
So people want to know, what's the difference between a revocable trust and an irrevocable
Yeah.
trust? Well, revocable trusts are very common. I mean, I pioneered the use of revocable trusts in New York. I started the whole living trust revolution in New
Really?
York. Back, you know, I was I was a litigation attorney for 11 years. And I was driving in my car down the Taconic because I lived in Westchester at the time, chasing an ambulance, so to speak.
Yeah.
I was on a personal injury call. I heard on the radio there was going to be a seminar given by an insurance man on trusts, and it said that a trust avoid probate.
Yeah.
I said, wow, I never heard that before. Who wouldn't want that? I had already probated a number of states, had a lot of problems with them. I thought it was too good to be true. So I picked up my phone in my car. Now, in this time, you actually had an actual physical phone.
I remember
a
those.
mobile phone?
With
You
the
had a
big
receiver,
batteries, yes.
the whole
Yeah.
9 yards.
Yeah.
So when I called to make a reservation, he was very excited. He thought I was a high roller because only a few people had those
Yep.
phones in their cars. So I go to this seminar and he bashes lawyers, bashes probate. He was an insurance guy. And then he has a lawyer come on at the end to answer questions. So I go and I introduce myself and he says, you know, well, I have a lawyer, but I'm not really happy with him. We said, would I do this seminar with him? I said, sure, Chuck. So I started doing the seminars. He'd bash the lawyer.
Right.
The whole seminar, probate, the lawyers are ripping you off, all this. And then I get up to the lawyer and ask. So after a few seminars, I say, you know what, Chuck, how about if I do the seminar?
Right.
And, you know, you just handle the financial work. He says,
Right.
great. So that started my career.
There you go.
I started doing seminars because I wanted to keep clients out of court.
Mm-hmm.
I had been in court for 11 years.
Right.
And what I used to say is, you know, when you go to court, who's in charge?
Right.
The judge.
The judge.
Right?
Yep.
Now, does the judge ever make a mistake?
Never. Never.
Does the judge always act in your best interest?
Never. Acts in my
Okay,
best
now,
interest.
Larry, I'm gonna
I'm a
ask-
landlord. They never act in my best interest.
That's for sure. You know, so let me ask you this. When the judge says jump, your answer has to be what?
What's that again?
When the judge says jump, your answer has to be what?
How high? Right, for him, that's
No,
the military.
How high, Your Honor.
How high, Your Honor? You're correct. How high, Your Honor? Right.
There you go. So I want to get clients out of court, put the control back into the client,
Yes.
which is why I don't take a retainer, because
Right.
I can't give a lecture for 45 minutes an hour talking about taking back control. And the first thing the client comes into my office is I take the control away from them
Right.
by taking a retainer.
There you go.
That's another reason I don't do it. The other reason is I only have happy clients. Nobody pays me unless they're happy.
Mm-hmm. There you
know,
go.
we have about 35,000 clients.
Wow.
You know, You want 35,000 unhappy clients?
No.
No, it only works if they're all happy.
Every year in January, I go through my book of business back when, and I'd basically fire 3 of my clients. Every year I fire 3 of my clients.
Is this guy my psychic twin?
Yeah.
So, I don't accept any negative clients in the office.
Yeah.
I had, about 3 years ago, I decided, negative clients are draining our energy.
Yep.
I gave a client back the fee they paid me 13 years earlier. I gave one, paid me 11. I paid them in full back.
Really?
Yeah, because the only way to get rid of them was to make them an unclient.
Right.
The only way to make them, they already paid me. They had my plan. So I said, here's all your money back. You can keep my plan or do with somebody else. But you know what I'm going for.
I just did a closing yesterday, and I refer this one closing attorney because people who buy house from don't have real estate attorneys. So I say, here's a wonderful guy. Everyone loves him. And I've used him 30 times, and I've had 30 resounding clients who speak volumes about him. So I keep referring him again and again. And I said to him just yesterday at the closing, I said, this seller was absent there in Vegas. I said, every client I've ever had has been really nice. And it's like you said, I think nice people attract nice people, and we just push away the others subconsciously. Again, we're connected again.
I'll tell you something. Here's what was the fabulous thing.
Yeah.
When I decided we would not accept any negativity in the office, I have an expression, including the staff. At the staff, I say we hire for character and we fire for character.
Right. Yeah.
But in terms of clients, when we stopped accepting, I had a client call me this morning, Larry. This morning, she starts yelling at me on the phone. She says, "You put my house in the trust. I didn't want everything else. I didn't want the house." I said, "Darlene, you can't talk to me that way."
Yeah.
She says, "I talk loud." I said, "Darlene, you can't talk to me that way. Whatever it is, be happy to fix it." Perfectly calm.
Right.
I'll be happy to fix it. Might have been a miscommunication. I don't know. But we'll take care of it on Monday.
Right.
She calmed right down. She was sweet. She thanked me. Emerson said this. He says, people don't judge you. You judge yourself, and the world merely reads and records the verdict. So what happened was when we refused to allow people to any form of disrespect or abuse, guess what happened, Larry? Those people stopped coming into the office like an invisible force field. The most amazing thing. Only nice people come in.
Right.
Or if they're not nice, when they come in, they're nice.
That's right.
Right.
It's the aura. Yeah.
Right. Well, to get there, it's a vibration in the office. It's a happy place.
Yeah.
So
you have I was going to say you have a lot of offices.
All happy people.
All happy people. Okay. Because when you hire attorneys, then your interview process obviously goes beyond the legal.
Yeah. I don't consider my life and work two separate things. You have one life.
Right.
If you're going to spend 8 hours in the office, that's 8 hours of your life.
Right.
It has to be enjoyable.
Yep.
It's not separate.
Right. That's half your life because a third of it you're sleeping. You only have 2 halves awake.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's my life. I want to enjoy it.
Yes.
That's my choice. So we're supposed to be talking about trust. So I got to go back.
Yeah, I forgot. Okay.
So revocable trusts, they avoid probate. I mean, everybody knows this. I'm not telling tales out of school at this point.
Right.
But it's even more important. It's a plan for disability.
Mm-hmm.
Because the trust takes effect while you're living, which is why they call it a living trust, it says who takes over if you become disabled. And I often say planning for disability is more important than planning for death.
Absolutely.
Because planning for disability is for you. Planning for death is for somebody else.
Yep.
You come first. So I want to make sure you have your people in charge, your legal, medical, financial. You're not left naked where a judge can appoint a legal guardian, a stranger, and that person's in control instead of your family. And of course, we want to avoid probate at death. It takes time. It's very frustrating. People don't have access to assets. I mean, I think everybody knows this. I mean, people call us. Nobody wants to go through probate anymore. It's an antiquated system. So apart from the trust, you want to get a power of attorney from an elder law firm because in my book, I wrote that not all powers of attorney are created equal. People think I have a power of attorney. Well, most of them are too weak to handle the types of problems that arise when someone becomes disabled because the standard form doesn't have the powers you need. I'm going to give you an example. So the standard form that most lawyers use, I call that over-the-counter medicine. The elder law power of attorney we use is prescription strength. And it works just like medicine. What happens if you only have over-the-counter, but you need prescription strength?
It's not effective.
It doesn't work. It's not strong enough. Exactly the same thing with the power of attorney. So I'll give an example. The standard form power of attorney will allow somebody to move $5,000 out of your name every year. You can make gifts up to $5,000, standard form. My power of attorney says you can gift any amount, hundreds of thousands. Why? If somebody has to go into a nursing home tomorrow, let's say they have $500,000. I could save $250,000 by moving it to the kids. It's a little bit too complicated to explain now, but the bottom line is I could save $250 by moving to the kids. Well, what if mom can't sign a power of attorney? They got one from the family lawyer. It says they can give $5,000 a year. So they can't move the $250. Well, if you can't move it, you lose it. Under Medicaid, it's move it or lose it. I could save it if you could move it, but if you can't move it, it's all going to go to mom's care. So once you're 60 plus, you want to get your power of attorney from an elder law firm. Elder law attorneys have maybe 50 or 60 powers. They're not in the standard form.
Really? I didn't know that.
Health proxy, living will. So my health proxy and living will, 1 page.
Mm-hmm.
I appoint so-and-so. I authorize them to terminate life support. Why is it 1 page? Because in life and in law, sometimes the less you say, the better it is.
Mm-hmm.
People come in with 6, 8, 10-page living will power of health proxy. Well, that's going to have to go to the committee in the hospital. They're going to have to parse the language. They're going to have to see if you can do this, you can't do that. Less is more. So revocable trust, standard, avoids probate. You want the estate planning lawyer to do the social work, should it be equal, unequal? We have an expression in estate planning where they say there's nothing so unequal as the equal treatment of unequals.
It's very convoluted, but it makes a lot of sense.
I'll repeat it because people didn't get it the first time.
Please, I got it because I know exactly what you're talking about.
But there's nothing so unequal as the equal treatment of unequals.
Right.
Because you have one son who's a hedge fund manager, and then the daughter's a massage therapist. You're going to leave it 50-50? Well, some people say, I want to treat my kids the same. So what I tell these people, and I'll tell our listeners is, I recommend you do something called a soft probe. You go to the son.
Yep.
By the way, sometimes the kid who has the most wants more. We've been around, right? But you go to the son, say, I'm talking to my estate planning lawyer. Soft probe. You float it out there. I was thinking of leaving more, maybe everything to your sister. You don't really need it. You elicit a reaction.
Right.
He says, of course, I don't need to give it all to her. You're off the hook.
Yep.
Or he says, that's not fair. It should be fair. I want mine. And then you know where you stand.
Yep.
And then what you do then is you give the daughter more while you're living.
Right. Correct.
He doesn't have to see it. It could be equal at the end, but slip her a few bucks, while you're living.
Hi, I'm Larry.
And I'm Ben. We're the father and son team of Leave the Key Home Buyers, and we want to buy your house.
We specialize in working with seniors who are transitioning out of their homes, and we understand what you were going through.
So if you're considering selling your home and would like an alternative to the traditional overwhelming process, reach out and see how we can help.
Do you have an outdated home?
No need to update anything.
Have a home that needs repairs?
Don't bother with repairs.
Don't want to take everything with you?
Leave whatever you want behind.
Dreading the headaches that come with agents?
Sell your home without paying a commission.
Dreading prying neighbors, attending open houses, and passing judgment on your home?
No need for public showings.
When you sell to us, you'll have all the certainty of closing on your timeline, not someone else's, and there's absolutely no pressure.
Visit leavethekey.com or call us today for a no-obligation offer at 631-388-7771 if you want to sell your home today.
The philosophy we always had at work was, make it equal at the end, but don't make it equal while you're alive. And that's how we used to say, because we don't want to cause grief afterwards, but we always told our clients, talk to your kids. Don't let your assets be a surprise to them after you die. It makes life so much more complicated. But doing the soft probe in advance, I think, is an excellent idea.
Well, you have to be very careful, Larry. Warren Buffett came up with he was lauded for saying everybody should discuss their assets and with their families.
Right.
Well, yeah, it's okay for you, Warren. I mean, everybody's getting $1 billion. It's not really a problem for them,
Right.
But for a lot of families, it can create tremendous issues discussing your wishes. families are different. Some of them are hard up. Some are going to say, you have all this money. Why do I have to wait till you die? Give it to me now.
Yeah.
And they say, well, and the parents say, well, I'm worried about my old age. And then all of a sudden they're not talking to each other.
Yep.
You have to be very careful with the family dynamics. And that's a whole other issue. Do you hold on to everything until you die, or do you give some while you're living?
Right.
Most people grossly overestimate the amount of money they're going to need for the rest of their lives.
Yep.
And they hold on for dear life to every penny. The average age of an heir is 62, 63. How much more could they use it at 42 and 43?
Right.
So revocable trusts have their place. They're wonderful, especially if you own property in 2 states. You avoid the multiple probate problem. You have a probate in New York and Tennessee. So you put the 2 deeds in and you avoid the 2 probates. But most people are interested as they get older in the irrevocable Medicaid Asset Protection Trust. Medicaid Asset Protection Trust goes by the acronym MAPT, MAPT, but we'll call it the Medicaid Trust for short. So that's called an irrevocable trust. Right away, alarm bells go off when people hear the word irrevocable. They're afraid of it.
Yeah.
Some people actually never go past it. Oh, it's irrevocable trust. I don't want to forget about it. Okay? Yeah. Or they go on the internet to read about irrevocable trusts. The first thing to know is in New York, you can revoke an irrevocable trust.
Oh, I didn't even know that.
Well,
and I know everything.
Yeah, that's what I figured. I can't believe there's something you don't know. It's shocking.
Yeah.
But it's irrevocable because mom or dad, or if they're a couple, mom and dad, they can't revoke it themselves. So law says, so far as they're concerned, that's an irrevocable trust. But we have another rule on the books in New York that says that if every person named in an irrevocable trust agrees in writing they no longer want the trust, you may revoke it on the written consent of all the named parties.
Huh. Interesting.
I feel like Papil's pocket fisherman.
That's right.
It's even better than that.
Go ahead.
Because in the trust, you also reserve the right to change the trustees. Because you have a falling out, you reserve the right to change who you leave it to.
Really?
So let's say you want to...
It doesn't sound very irrevocable.
It doesn't.
No.
But here's why. It only has to be irrevocable for Medicaid purposes.
Right.
It doesn't have to be irrevocable for tax purposes. In fact, it's not. For tax purposes, it's still yours.
Right.
So people go onto the internet, they look up irrevocable trust, say it's out of your name, you don't own it anymore, it's a taxable event, you got to file a gift tax return. None of that is correct because there's 100 different types.
Right.
Ours is just designed to protect you from Medicaid. But so now I said you need the 2 kids to sign to revoke it. What if one of them won't sign? Not a problem, because I reserve the right to change who's in charge. I reserve the right to change who I leave it to. Mary won't sign. Mary, you're out as a trustee. Mary, I'm taking you out as a beneficiary. You're no longer a party. And I only have to have your brother Jimmy sign.
Right. There you go.
So, which means what? You have your cake and eat it too.
Right.
It's protected. You put it out of your name. Anytime you want, you could take it back. I think it's one of the greatest vehicles, legal vehicles I've ever encountered.
Now that's different than an irrevocable trust you'd use for estate tax purposes?
Correct.
Okay.
But, for every irrevocable trust for estate tax purposes, there's 100 trusts for Medicaid purposes.
Okay, that's one.
But people go on the internet, it's like the most terrifying words in English language. I read on the internet, there's 5 words,
Yeah.
People come in all day long.
Must be true.
Not only that, my accountant said, my financial advisor said, this person said, that person said. And you know what I say? Your financial advisor said that. You thought you got a professional opinion. Actually, what you got was a personal opinion coming out of a professional's mouth.
Right. Well said.
And I'm not afraid to say it because, I write a column in 13 newspapers. I've been writing it for 3 years. And one of the reasons I'm able to write the column is I'm not afraid to say what I think. And that almost doesn't exist in the legal profession. Right. Lawyers are just afraid of everything and everybody. They're totally risk averse. Those are the type of people who go into law.
Right.
And even when I started writing the column, one week I write on law, and the next week I write on health and well-being for older adults to keep it interesting. I knew every other lawyer in New York was going to read that column. And, you know how lawyers like to take pot shots at other lawyers.
Yeah.
So I started, with a little trepidation, but now I say what I think. And if you don't like, I like to quote my mother on this. When she used to say, "You don't like it? Too bad."
That's a little different. I always quoted my father.
But, that's the way to be in life,
Yeah, yeah.
And, people find it so refreshing for somebody to actually speak their mind and say what they think.
Yeah.
Because everybody's afraid to say what they think, what are people going to say? Who's going to take a shot at me? Yeah. So, but that's the beauty of, I was admitted to the bar in 1980. It's 45 years ago.
Yeah.
Even, and you know this, at this point, I know more than all the so-called experts in the field.
Right.
You get post-expert.
Yes.
I'll give you an example.
Post-expert.
I'm listening to a CLE, continuing legal education.
Right, yeah.
You have to take 24 hours every 2 years. So I'm listening to a panel of, quote, experts. I have ethics counsel, elder law counsel, defense counsel. And what they tell me to do is they say, after the client signs the estate plan, you should send them a letter. And in the letter, you should say, thank you very much for your patronage. This concludes our representation of you in this matter. Why should we send a letter? In case you made a mistake, it starts the statute of limitations running. After a few years, they can't sue you. Now, who's that for the benefit of?
That's right. That's right.
They teach you to do things for the benefit of the lawyer. They don't even care about the client. Well, here's I do the opposite.
I'm surprised that's continuing education. I'm surprised at that. You think continuing education would be for the benefit of the client?
You would think so.
You would think so, yeah.
Well, so the lawyers are actually more concerned with the 1 in 10,000 clients going to sue them
Right.
than the 9,999 that aren't.
Right.
So I think the opposite. I do the opposite.
Right.
I say, thank you very much. We don't charge for phone calls or emails. You have a question, you call us anytime. It's no bother. I can't tell you how many times. I had a woman come in 6 times because I could tell who she was. 6 times I said, call me anytime. It's no bother. Really, call me, it's no bother. Next day she calls me. You know what she says? Sorry to bother you. It's the first thing people say.
Yeah, yeah.
That's why I have to make it clear, like from the heart.
Right.
I really mean it.
Right.
You call me anytime. I'm happy to hear from you. That's why I'm here.
Right. Yeah.
And I mean it, and I feel it. Thank you very much for calling. I want you to call me. So we don't charge for phone calls or emails, but here's something that the professions are totally afraid of. I'm the only lawyer I know who does it. We're going to call you in every 3 years for a free review. Why? Because if the plan has my name on it, it's an Ettinger plan, I want it to work when you need it.
Right.
Not when you wrote it 3 decades earlier.
Right.
Who says it's going to work? It's probably not going to work.
Right.
So the bar considers the estate plan a transaction. It's total nonsense. It's a relationship.
Yeah.
And if you don't have a relationship, it's probably not going to work when you need it.
Right.
Another thing lawyers do, they keep the original.
Yes, because they want to settle and so on. Yeah.
You've been around.
Yeah.
Well, there's only one original.
Yeah.
So, for a will, if you need to probate the will, you got to go back to that lawyer. You may not have heard from them for 30 years.
Right.
When I started the practice, I found that Ettinger Law Firm in 1990, 35 years ago, made a conscious decision. I'm going to give the client original. I'm going to give the client original. And I'm going to make them want to come back to me instead of have to come back to me. I keep working.
What a crazy concept.
Yeah, unbelievable. But, it's nice, Larry, because you build a relationship. Yeah. You see clients over the years, it's just, that's where the professional satisfaction comes from. Relationship building, seeing people, growing with them, growing with a firm. My firm, in the last week, I've had at least 2 clients come in. They did an estate plan with a lawyer. The lawyer retired or died. Yep. Well, I said, well, you did your estate plan with a solo practitioner.
That's right.
So we have a succession plan. Yeah. We have lawyers in their 20s, 30s, junior partners. The firm is designed to go past my lifetime because what's the use of having a plan that doesn't last for generations? We usually set up trusts for our clients' children called Inheritance Protection Trust, the IPT.
I've heard that one. Okay.
So instead of leaving that, we'll say $500,000 to Mary, we leave it to a Mary trust. We say, Mary, you're in charge. You can do whatever you want. Buy, sell, trade, spend. You can spend the whole thing. We're not ruling from the grave. But the trust protects you if you get divorced. What's the divorce rate? 50%?
Yep.
Protects you if you get sued.
Yeah, okay.
People get sued all the time. But the main thing is, Mary, this trust says when you die, the money, the Smith money, the money your parents left you, that goes to your children, not your husband and wife, maybe wife number 2. They're bloodline trust.
Yeah.
She doesn't have children, goes back to her brothers and sisters. I've done tens of thousands of these. I invented this in 2008, and it's extremely popular. The Inheritance Protection Trust. Everybody wants to keep it in the blood.
Correct.
How often does money go sideways to in-laws and their families? All the time. I'll tell you a funny story. I had this fellow come in years ago. His name was Schwartz. He came into my office in White Plains. He introduced me to his fiance. He says, here's my fiance, and I'd like to leave my estate one half to my fiance and one half to my daughter. Thank you, Mr. Schwartz. Fine. Come back in a couple of weeks. I'll have everything ready. That was the time we took a retainer, so he gave a check for half back in the day. So he comes in. So the next day I get a call from the daughter. She says, my mother's turning over in her grave. All the money was my mother's money. It's over $1 million. She died and went to him. I've been his daughter for 52 years. He meets this woman 6 weeks ago and wants to leave it half to her and half to me. This is outrageous. I said, listen, the guy's competent. He can do what you want. I can do nothing about it. The reason it's a funny story is he comes in 2 weeks later with his fiancée and another woman. I said, excuse me, Mr. Schwartz, who's she? He goes, oh, that's my lawyer. I said, really? I thought I was your lawyer. He said, well, a man can have two lawyers, can't he? I said, of course he can, Mr. Schwartz, but not in this office. So I ran back to the bookkeeper. How much does Schwartz pay us? Give me a check. Here's your check. There's the door. Get out of here. Anyway, I find out the next day who's the other woman. It was the fiance, also known as the floozy's cousin, the lawyer, coming to make sure 50% was nailed down tight.
Son of a gun.
They have an expression. I don't know if you heard them. They say, marry them old and run them uphill.
I haven't heard that one.
I'm sure you haven't, but I've seen a lot in my time.
I've had where a woman worth millions of dollars and no children, all the money was going to their relatively wealthy nephew, husband and wife. He was our client, and then he died. She got his money, and then she was leaving all the money to her home health care worker. Millions of dollars. I said, what about your nephew? He has enough money. But your husband...
It was his money.
Was
his
money.
Family, yeah.
Right. And he said, no, it should go to him. And so you both agreed. Now you leave, but she took such good care of my husband. Now she's taking care of me. So she's going to be with them for 5 or 6 years. And for that, she's going to inherit about $4 million. And I went to my compliance department, said, this seems like elder abuse. This is a number of years ago. I said, there's nothing you could do about it. And a year later, they said, the laws changed. I don't know if it's laws or their rules changed. Now you have to report it. But they wouldn't. They said, we can't touch it.
I remember that change. Yeah. It's interesting. People get like a Stockholm syndrome with their caregivers.
Yeah.
They feel beholden to them. They're afraid of losing them. They're totally dependent on them, and it changes them psychologically. Yeah. Their brain gets rewired. Yeah. I can't live without this person.
Right. We took very good care of my mother. My mother had Lewy body dementia. Talking about sitting, like not able to speak something, 3 years, but she wasn't on life support. There was nothing she could do. Matter of fact, she told me if I ever get like grandma, her mother, who was senile, put a pillow over my face. And she wasn't senile. She was a vegetable. And I so badly wanted to put a pillow over her face to put her out of her misery. And I'm always afraid when I go to the pearly gates, God willing, she's going to, first thing, mother's going to see me and smack me. Why'd you let me live like this for 3 years? So she's a tough woman. So I'm curious how that meeting goes. But I relate to the story you told before. But the whole thing about my mother's healthcare worker was so wonderful. We just kept treating her well, but giving her extra money and everything else while she was taking care of my mother. And they even gave her a lump sum at the end when my mother was gone. We still gave her another check because she was so wonderful to her. Mm-hmm. And but leaving her my parents' estate, that's a bit much. And I see it. I've seen it more often than I want to say. So, but yeah, that Stockholm syndrome is a good way of putting it.
So let's talk about what we would put into a Medicaid Asset Protection Trust. Of course, you protect the house. Doesn't matter to you if the house is in a Medicaid trust. Yep. You still have the right to live there. Use it for the property. You pay the tax the same as before. You mow the lawn same as before. No difference. The trust can sell the house. There's, I wrote a column recently. The title of my column was "An Elder Law Estate Plan." There's more misinformation than information.
Sounds like
and
politics
it's true.
Today.
Like how many people think you put your house in an irrevocable trust, you can't sell it? How many advisors say that? I mean, I've done it thousands and thousands of times. You can sell the house and it's not even an issue.
Yeah.
So the reason I wrote that column is because there's a column in Newsday called Ask the Expert.
Yeah.
By Lynn Brenner. She's a financial advisor.
Yeah.
She writes a column. I've taken the paper to task over this. She writes a column in Irrevocable Trust. She says if you put your house in an irrevocable trust, you lose the $500,000 exemption on the sale of the primary residence if you're a couple, $250,000 for a single. I made the newspaper publish a retraction. And what really irks me is this column is called Ask the Expert.
Right. Yeah.
She's not an expert on
Right.
what she's writing about. So the mistake she made was she thought all irrevocable trusts are the same. They're different. The Medicaid trust is what we call tax neutral. It doesn't affect you tax-wise at all. It's
Right.
only for Medicaid. Tax-wise, same as if you didn't have it.
Right.
That's what tax neutral means.
Yep.
So you put in the house. You want to sell it, the trust sells it. You have the $500,000 exclusion for a couple, $250,000 for a single. What else do you put in? Well, you can't put in income, only assets,
Right.
because income keeps coming in. But an asset you can retitle to the trust. So a client has $500,000, $1 million. I say, do you need that money to live on? No, we're living on our income.
Right.
So if you don't need it to live on, you're actually safe keeping it for the long-term care industry. Why not put in the trust, protect it for your kids? Now they say, well, what if I need it later on? There's a way to get it out of the trust. These are called income-only trusts. You can only get the income.
Right.
But what if you need the principal? What if you need 50 grand? Well, it turns out you can make a gift of any amount tax-free to your son or daughter. And they can't give it back to you, but they can spend it on you.
Right.
And here's why. When I apply for Medicaid, I have to show them what you took out of your name and put into the trust. I do not have to show Medicaid what the trust gave to somebody else.
Right.
You need 50 grand, you give it to your son or daughter from the trust. They can't give it back to you because it'll show up in your bank account.
Right.
Medicaid sees your
They
bank
pay
account.
your
Where
bill.
did that 50 come from? If it came from the trust, you're sunk. But they can pay for the trip to for the family to Disney or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So you can get the money out. Remember, you can revoke the trust and consent
Yeah.
of all the named parties. You can gift out principal. You can change who's in charge. You can change who you leave it to. It's just completely flexible.
Yeah.
So the people who don't do it are the people who get the wrong advice,
Yep.
which is most,
Yep.
or fear. I don't have to tell you. Most people are running around ruled by their fears. They're not really living their
Yeah.
lives. They're afraid of everything and
Yeah.
everybody, So that's why I consider it my job to build the client's confidence so they're not afraid. And I don't do anything unless the client understands it. I want to get the client to a position where they say, this makes sense. I want to do this. Client says, I'll put myself in your hands. You do it. I say,
Right.
I don't do that. I said,
Right.
I don't do it. I teach you what you need to know, and you tell me you want to do it.
Right.
Again, if you don't understand the plan,
Yep.
you don't have a plan.
Yep.
That's how I view it.
Very interesting. You said about the MAP or the Medicaid trust.
Yes, mapped.
So mapped. But if you're doing a regular irrevocable trust for estate planning, that's truly irrevocable?
Yes.
Okay.
You have to be rather careful.
Yeah.
If you want to get it out of your name for estate tax
Right.
purposes, you can't have any incidences of ownership or
Right.
benefit from that trust.
Correct.
If you start to hold on to strings, it'll come back and bite you.
Yeah.
The IRS, you may know or may not know, had a ruling. They outlawed a certain type of irrevocable trust. What clients were doing, fancy lawyers in New York City, Manhattan offices, they're always on the bleeding edge,
Yep.
They're always pushing the envelope.
Yep.
They devised a trust. So when you die, you get something. If it's in your estate, you get the stepped up basis.
Right.
You know what it is, but for our listeners, the basis is what you paid for the house. Let's say you paid $250, and you put $100 in. So your basis now $250 plus capital improvements $100, $350. You sell it for $500, you got $150 a gain. Between New York and Federal, you got $50,000 in capital gains tax. But when you pass something by inheritance, the heirs get it at date of death value. The basis gets stepped up from what you paid to what it's worth on the date of death. So the heirs inherit it as if they paid $500. Well, they paid $500, so they sell it for $500, no gain,
Correct.
no capital gains tax. So the trust preserves the stepped up basis. But I don't remember why I started that.
Right.
That
You were saying how people use the trust a certain way and they go to the edges of the limits.
Oh, so thank you. So the lawyers, what they did was they designed the trust. They got the stepped up basis like it's in your estate, but it was out of your estate for estate tax purposes. They took their cake and eat it too. So the IRS says you can't do that. They said if it's in your estate, it's subject to estate tax. You get the stepped up basis. If you're out of your estate, you're not subject to the estate tax, but you don't get the step up. We never did those. I can't tell how many people wrote to me and said, Did I lose something? No, you didn't lose anything. We didn't do the abuse. I mean, we don't actually, as a firm, as a practice, we don't do anything that's already tried and true. I tell people, you know this, okay? Smart people, this is my opinion, smart people obey the law pay the taxes, do everything. You know, somebody was telling me at lunch, no, just before lunch, I had an appointment. She's telling me about, you know, her neighbors, they claim the star exemption, and in Florida they got the homestead exemption, and they're playing like they live in both places. I said, you know what, fine for them. I said, you have $16 million. You don't need to play any games. You know, maybe they're hard up, but I said, I don't believe in it. I don't do anything like that. It's totally unnecessary. We live in the greatest country in the world. You got every possible benefit tax break possible. The whole playing field is tilted in favor of the well-off, even the moderately well-off. I said, you don't need to game the system. Just take the very generous benefits you get.
Right. Yep.
You know,
Don't
and
be
play
greedy.
it straight.
I keep saying I don't mind paying taxes if the government would use it for put it to intelligent use. You take all the tax you want, just use it intelligently. That's my feeling. I say poor people in America are not poor people in the rest of the world. It's a very different level of poor. Poor people in America still have cable television. Poor people in Africa don't have food. It's a very, and that sort of goes to the middle class too. We'd say middle class is squeezed, but middle class in America is not a bad way to be. And
You know, I mean, I'm Canadian, born and raised.
Yep.
My brother lives in Canada, my twin brother. I was in Canada twice this year. I went out to the Rockies, and I also took my son to Newfoundland to visit a famous national park there. The quality of life here is at least 1/3 higher. I would say it's 40% higher. This is Canada.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
If you just by living here, you're 40% better off than if you were in Canada. And that's Canada. Forget about, the rest of the world.
Right.
Or the third world. We're very fortunate. But, you ever hear about the worm and the horseradish?
No.
I didn't think so. Thinks it's the sweetest place in the world because it's the only place he's ever been.
There you go.
People who are born and raised in America, I'm an American citizen now, but I took on my citizenship a number of years ago now. But if you're born here, you don't realize how privileged, how fortunate you are. It's good. That's why it's good for young people to travel, see the rest of the world, see how people live, see the challenges they have, come back with maybe a better perspective. It's the freest country in the world. People don't really I come here, I write my own ad copy, I put in my television commercials, I write in the newspaper, I do whatever I want. You think you could do that in Canada? No.
Really?
No, you can't do the same thing as here. Rules against this, rules against that, social strictures, I'll give you an example. In Canada, when you're a young lawyer, you graduate, you go to work for a firm, they expect you to work there for the rest of your life. Now, occasionally, if you're a real rebel, you change firms like once, but twice, you're considered like an apostate, You're just like a complete flake.
Right.
Okay. Now, in America, it's exact opposite. You come into a firm, they expect you to work a year or two and go somewhere else, and everybody wish you great, wish you the best, it's all positive. People expect you to move and change and learn and grow. And there's no stigma.
Right.
In fact, the opposite. It's encouraged.
It's encouraged.
Yeah.
I was shocked that it's encouraged.
Yeah, and you try it a couple of times, normal.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, what a difference in terms of personal growth and opportunity.
Right.
It's tremendous. They say, what is it that comedian Yakov Smirnoff used to say, America, great country, But the streets here are literally paved with gold. I moved here from Montreal, okay? I moved into a building that was on an interim lease, okay? Do you know what that was? That was when they used to convert to co-ops.
Right.
You could rent it, but then they were telling you that it was going to turn into a co-op later on.
Right.
You'd have to buy the apartment. Converts to co-op. They sell me an apartment for $33,000. It's worth $125,000.
Right.
I mean, it was a 26-year-old kid.
Right.
Why did they do that? Because they needed 80% of the tenants to sign to get the conversion. I mean, I made $100,000 a couple years after I moved here, for free.
For free, right.
Only in America.
Yes.
I'm going to tell you a story about the COVID. They gave us a very substantial sum the first year to, meet our payroll. We had to. We were closed for 2 or 3 months.
Yep.
And we kept everybody on the payroll. The government paid for it.
Yeah.
A year later, they come back, the government, they say, well, if you made 25% less than you usually make, we're going to give you the same money over again.
Yep.
A year later, Who does that?
Right.
Where did that happen in the world?
I took it and I felt guilty taking it. I said, I don't need it. I can afford to pay my people anyway. But I said, if I don't take it, someone's going to take it. It's like,
Well,
it seemed foolish not to take it. So I took
I
it.
told you we're psychic twins.
Yeah.
I took it too.
You took it too? Yeah. I really thought about it. And I said,
You know,
that's
and
nuts.
I'm gonna be perfectly honest.
yeah.
I didn't need the money. But,
Yeah.
But it did help me because I bought a condo in Florida.
Yeah, that's the ridiculousness of this whole concept. You took this government to buy a condo, which you had every right to do.
Yeah.
But well, I don't want to get on that soapbox.
But you know what my grandmother used to say? I had a lovely grandmother. She used to say, if they give, so take.
So take.
That's what she used to
My
say.
father say, I'm willing to not take Social Security because I don't need it. But if all the people like me didn't take Social Security, it'd make a difference. If I don't take it, it makes no difference.
Well,
so I'm not going to take it.
You know, my grandmother, she was poor, but she was known for her generosity.
Yeah, there you go.
You know?
Yeah.
So she was a smart woman.
Very interesting. That's a wonderful, wonderful comment. Wonderful comment. Let me ask you a question. We covered so much material here. If you want to give a takeaway or two for someone, sort of summarize what we discussed, what would you want to say?
That's a big question. You know, I think I would say that in this field, estate planning, you have to connect personally with the lawyer. It is the biggest financial decision you're going to make is not your investments. It's what are you going to do with what you accumulated during your lifetime, and how are you going to pass it to the least amount of damage possible. And it's not just your assets. I also talk about legacy planning. I also talk about what impression are you going to leave? You know, the assets will dissipate. The impression will last forever. So I talk to people about the impression, the personal legacy. And I think it's a very, very personal relationship between the estate planning lawyer and the client. It's something that I put on a very high pedestal, exalt, that the better that relationship is, the better plan it's going to be.
Mm-hmm. Nicely said. Nicely said. And normally ask a question, and I think I'm going to answer your question. You'll tell me if you agree. Say, what differentiates your firm from other firms? And I think it's your client-centric focus that separates you. And I don't know if you want to say something else, but it's...
You absolutely picked that up.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know of any other firm that gives 2 free consultations.
Right.
I do that for the benefit of the client's comfort and relaxation. Nobody gives a free review every 3 years. We don't say come in every 3 years, we'll give you a free review. We say we're going to contact you every 3 years and call you in for a free review. Who's going to wake up 3 years from now and say, oh, I got to call Ettinger? Nobody.
Right.
We don't charge for phone calls or emails. I mean, I want the client to feel that this is like a home, a safe harbor.
Right.
And the reason for that, amongst other things, is I'm going to do a much better plan if that client opens up to me. And they're only going to open up if they feel very comfortable.
Right.
Sometimes I'm talking to somebody for 30, 40 minutes and they drop the bomb, the thing that they didn't want to say.
Right.
But they feel relaxed and open enough to say, you know what, my son's an alcoholic. They're ashamed, they're embarrassed, or this or that, I always ask clients, I say, what does your son do? And what's his wife's name? They say, Jennifer. I said, do you like her?
Right. Yeah.
I can tell instantaneously if they like her or not. You know why? Because if they don't like her, they hesitate.
Uh-huh.
But if they like her, they say, oh yeah, love her, right away.
Right.
Any hesitation,
Right.
it means what?
They don't know how to say what they want to say.
They don't want to say a bad thing about somebody else,
Yeah,
especially in front of a stranger.
Right.
So it's
especially the daughter-in-law, whatever. It's so true. It's funny when I spend so much of my life talking to clients on the telephone, and I'll say to them, I'll ask a question. I'll say, right now you're looking up to the right, aren't you? So how do you know? I can tell by the way you're pausing, and I know if they're a left brain, right brain person from my relationship with them, and I know exactly their posture at that moment. And it's like I said, like being psychic, use that term a few times. You get to read people. When you're face to face, it's even easier of all the body language and so on. But even over the phone, there's volume said between the words.
I like to say the 2 people who know people best in life are estate planning lawyers and hairdressers.
I used to get my hair cut at a place where I went to the same person who cut my hair. I'm married for 41 years next week. She's cutting my hair for 42 years. And then one day the place closed and she disappeared. So I never got to say goodbye. 42 years I know this woman. But I know I hear the other women talk to, and the chit chat and the personal dialogue in a big open space about their daughter-in-laws and so on. They're not shy to say it in the hairdresser location. Like you're saying.
Yeah, when you get in that seat, all of a sudden, everything comes out.
And there's walls all around you. No one else, the other 8 hairdressers or 8 customers are not hearing anything you're saying.
No, they're in their own world. They're in their own conversation.
But I'm sitting and listening. I'm saying, I can't believe you're saying that in front of everybody. But as you said, hairdressers and attorneys, very good. So this is a very interesting. You said this is going to be an easy one for me. You did very light lifting on this one. I got no lifting whatsoever. Thank you. I got a chance to sit back and relax. So question, like, how do people get hold of you and Joe Law Firm?
Well, it's pretty easy. Go to trustlaw.com. One word, trustlaw.com.
That is easy.
And everything's there. I have hundreds of articles on estate planning, elder law. I have videos. It's an education itself. And I tell people, if you want, before you hire a lawyer, let's say I'm advising somebody, they're looking for a lawyer in Tennessee. I said, go onto the internet, look a couple of their websites, parse them by their websites. You can tell a ton about a firm by their website, and pick the 2 you want most. I said, then interview a couple.
Yep.
You're going to like one better than the other. That's the one you'll go with.
Personalities is I'm going to say as important as technical skill, because you have the most technical guy, but if you don't get along, they're not going to put their technical skills to the proper use.
Well, we talked earlier about why do many estate plans fail.
Right.
And I mentioned to you before we went on the air, you need somebody who's very technically competent and somebody who cares a great deal.
You did say that.
And in our society, in the world today, you and I are throwbacks.
Yeah.
It's hard to find people who really care about what they do. The pride, has fallen off.
Yeah.
But we fund all our estate plans.
Mm-hmm.
We don't give the client any responsibility because they're not going to discharge it.
Right.
You come in. I don't just do the estate plan. I make sure all the assets. I contact the financial advisor. I send them the trust. I give them instructions. I copy the client, say, please approve my instructions, your financial advisor. We make sure it gets done.
Well, I don't know when anyone does that. I did not know when
I don't know
does
anyone
that.
who does it either.
Yeah.
But you know what? It's a function of caring.
Right.
I care that the plan works.
Right.
And, people feel that. They know that.
Right. That's huge. That's huge. Know something? I want to end there. That's an awesome ending to this podcast because you care. And that's a great last words out of your mouth.
Bottom line.
Yeah, bottom line. That's what it's about.
And so do you.
And I really do. I started my first business at 22, and I've been self-employed for 45 years. And I always attributed my success to being honest and to caring. Those are the 2 things. And I tell people, if you work for the money, you don't make money. If you work to help people, you make money. And that's the mantra we have in the company. When people call us, we buy houses, we have house flippers, we buy and fix houses. And first thing I say to someone is, why would you sell to a cash buyer who's going to pay you less, possibly than a retail buyer? They have to sell themselves to me why we're the good solution. If we're not the right solution, I'll try to talk them into another solution. Always, because I always want what's best for the person I just met over the phone or just met in person. If you do that, money will come. If you do that, success will come. And if you do that, relationships will come. And I teach that to my staff all the time. For 45 years, I've been doing that.
It's funny.
Yeah.
Many times, I'll turn a client away, so you don't need a trust.
Right.
I said, I'm glad you came to me.
Yeah.
Because none of the people do a trust for you, but I won't.
Right.
And I've done more trust than anybody else.
Yeah.
But you don't need it. The value is not there. I don't do anything that's not worth more than I'm getting paid for.
That's the way it should be.
Yeah, but if it's not worth it, I don't want the money.
Right. You have enough clients who are paying you for value.
But even if I didn't, it would make no difference.
Right.
Ben Franklin said, it's hard for an empty bag to stand upright.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I stood upright even when my bag was empty.
I say it all the time. We keep going. We should be ending this. But when I got married, I joked that my wife owed $14,000 and my company owed me $14,000. We had no money in the bank. We had a net worth of 0. And my attitude about money today, and I'm successful, is exactly the same as when I had 0.
Right.
Exactly the same. I never heard it put that way with the empty bag, but I was the empty bag.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've never changed. So we talked about it. It's in your DNA. Certain things in your DNA, like teaching. We say it was in our DNA. And that's another
Where
example.
did you grow up, may I ask?
Right here. I grew up in Syosset, right in the middle of Long Island.
Okay.
So not in Canada, much less
Not
of
in
an interesting
Montreal,
story.
but
No.
similar upbringing. though.
That's similar, middle-class Jewish family on Long Island.
Great.
So, but anyway, I got to say it was a real pleasure.
Thank you.
I
Thank
very
you
much
for
enjoyed
having
this. You're very welcome.
me. Okay, and maybe we'll do it again sometime.
Absolutely. You got plenty of
I'm
topics
just getting
to cover.
started.
Just getting started. Absolutely.
All right, thank you.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Unlocking Senior Resources podcast by Leave the Key. If you've enjoyed this episode or found it helpful, don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share this podcast. We specialize in working with seniors who are transitioning out of their homes, and we understand what you are going through. So if you are considering selling your home and would like an alternative to the traditional overwhelming process, reach out to see how we can help. When working with us, you can sell your home in its current condition, there is no need to remove unwanted items, and you control when the house is sold, along with so many other advantages. Visit leavethekey.com or call us at 631-388-7771 to learn more about our senior home buying process.